Hello everyone. Today I wanted to show you how to make a simple pulse wave for the Osmose in the Haken engine with custom macros for release and pulse speed. So that's the sound we will be making. So first off, let's start by going to an empty matrix here, empty preset. And the simplest way to make a square wave is to go to the bank A here, and we choose wave bank 1. Here you have all the basic shapes, so let's choose square here. The square will be generated if A here takes a value above 0. So for that we will input on the plus here, we will input Z, and Z is the key press. So when you're pushing down a key, it will start generating the square wave. Now the next thing you want to do is here in F1, which is the first square. It's a bank, so you can generate up to 5 squares here. So what we want to do is we add the X here, and X is key tracking. So now it will track where the frequency will track where you are pushing on your keyboard. But if I press a button on my keyboard now, it won't do anything yet. We will also need to assign the sound output to the master here. So here we have the banks, we are using bank 1, so what we do here is we add the Z here again. So now the volume will also track how far we are pushing the buttons, and we need to do it twice because we have a left and a right here. So if I press a button now, we will get a square wave. And since we are using a bank, what you can do is we will use the second square here. So we add X again to track where we are on the keyboard, and if you want to add 1 octave higher, you can multiply by 2 here. So now we will have 2 square waves with the second one 1 octave higher. And if you want the second square wave to be 1 octave lower, you can do add dot 5 here. So it will divide it by 2 basically. So now we have 1 octave lower. And to add half numbers, you need to press dot on your keyboard and then a number. But let's remove this one for now, just for clarity on the oscilloscope. And since we want to make a pulse wave, we need to use the D value here. As you can read on the screen, at 0 you will get a full square, and at 1 you will get very thin square. And to make it pulse, we will use an envelope. Envelopes and LFOs are located here on the shape generators. By default they are all set to be an LFO. If you want to use it as an envelope, you can click on them and set it to single cycle, so now it will only trigger once. F here is the speed in frequency, and T is the trigger. So let's add those. So for the frequency, let's make it a slow envelope. So let's add dot 5. And for the trigger, we will use the Z again. So now the envelope will trigger whenever you are pressing the Z down, a key down. And to use these envelopes or LFOs, you will need to use the formulas here. So let's click on formula A here. And If you click here you have all the values you can use, and if you want to use one of the LFOs or envelopes, you click on the first dot here, and we are using envelope number 1, so shape generator 1, and you can see the shape here. So if you click the shape, you can choose it, and we will use the ramp down because the pulse generator is from 1 to 0. So we start at 1 here, and we will go down to 0. And to start at 1, we will drag up the circle here. Let's go to 1. So now it will start at 1 and go down to 0. And to use the formula, we were using formula A. So let's add A here in the pulse slot. And let's see what happens when we push a key. And there you go, you can hear we have a nice pulse going on. Right now the pulse speed is always the same, but if we want to make a custom speed for that, we can do that by adding macros. So let's start by clicking down here on the edit button, and unfortunately you have to type in the macro names yourself. You can do this by adding I, which means it's the first macro. So if you want to do the second macro, you do II. But we are using the first, so let's do I equals, and then we can add a name. So in this case we will do pulse speed, and then you click done. And if I click somewhere now, you can see a macro has been added here in these 6 slots. On the first one we added it on the I. So to use this this macro, we will add another formula here, and this time we will click on the last dot here, which is where the macros are located, and we were using macro number 1. You can choose if you want the value from 0 to 1 or from 0 to 127, but let's use the 0 to 1 now and add a value of 1. There we go. And now we want to assign formula B to the speed of the envelope. So that was the frequency here. So here instead of the .5 we add formula number B. And you can see here on the formula it says I, which means it's using the macro. And if you look on your keyboard now, you will also notice that the macro has been added to your screen there. And let's click B, and if you click here on the dot you can select show formula value, and if I click the B here now, it should, as you can see here above the formulas, you can see the value that I have on my macro. So if I have a really low value, the pulse will be really slow, and if I have the value at maximum, we will have a fast pulse. And in this case the fast pulse means it's 1, because that's the maximum value we have here. Because it's 1 times 1 times the macro value, and we choose 0 to 1 for the macro value. If you want to have an even faster pulse, you can do that. So if you click the middle dot here, you can change the multiplier. So if we make it times 10, you will see it's now 10 here, but that might be too fast for the pulse. So let's put it down at like 2. And now put the macro at max again. So you can hear it's a lot faster pulse, but still sounds good. Alright, let's make the pulse a little bit more interesting again. So we go back to formula 1 here, and what I like to do is make this value 0.9, and then in the second we add 0.1. So now it will end just before becoming a full square. And if you want the sound to start with a little bit more boom, like because at 1 it's very thin sound, we can make it even lower here. So let's go to 0.8. So now we have a range from 0.9 to 0.1. So we just filtered out the ends of the pulse basically. So let's hear how that sounds again. Pulse a bit slower through my macro. Alright, so we have a decent pulse going on. We can make the pulse a little bit more interesting by using LFO here. So as I said earlier, these others are already set to LFO because they are continuously cycling. So let's make it a slow LFO by adding 0.5 here again. And for the trigger we will just use the Z. So now when we press the Z, this LFO will keep cycling. And to use the LFO we will need another formula again. And let's use shape generator 2 here because that's where our LFO is located. And for the shape we will choose a sine here. And let's just add 0.2 here or something, just so you can hear it very obvious. And we will add C here in the minus. So now it will subtract whatever is in the LFO from the pulse. Right now it's very obvious because I put a high number in there, but we will make that lower in a bit. So you can hear it pulsing now because of the LFO. But that's a bit too extreme, so let's make it like 0.5. So now we have a little bit of movement in the square wave, but it's not too extreme, which is nice. Now let's add some release timer to the pulse wave, and you can you also do this through formulas. So let's add a new formula again, and we want to use the Z here for the push down. So let's make that full 0 to 1 here, and make it linear. So now it will just be tracking your key the same way as the Z does here on the matrix already. But to add release, we can add the persistence here. So let's add some persistence, just make it very obvious. So we put a high number here. And now to use this, the release timer, we will need to add it on the matrix again. But what you might be used to on other synthesizers is that you just add it to the sound. So you add it here, and we are using formula D, so we add D here. But right now it won't do the release yet. The sound will be persistent, but the wave bank square, it will stop generating because we are using the Z here. And when no key is pressed, Z will be 0, so it won't generate anything. So we also need to add formula D here, and then we will hear the release happening. So if you want to have a custom release timer, you can do this by using a macro again. So let's go back here to the macros, to the edit in the bottom. And this time we will use macro 2, so we will use II equals, and then the name, so release timer, and we click done again. So now you can see a second macro has been added again, but it's not being used right now. And to use this, we go to formula D, which was the release timer. And what we want to do is in the release here, we will remove that. So persistence back to 0. And now you go to where it says blend off here. You click that, you go to the top and you select blend for all nodes. Now you can see it says secondary and primary. So in the secondary you will want to add 0 to 1 on Z again, and in the secondary we will add the persistence. And basically with the blend you can blend between these two formulas, but right now we don't have any input on how it's blending. So for that we will use macro 2. So if you go down here again, you can select the second macro, which was II, and right now if you turn the second macro, it will blend between the two formulas. So the more you are blended towards the second formula, the more you will get the persistence, so you will have a longer release time. So let's add that, or show that. So right now the macro is at 0, so there won't be any release time. And if we increase the, let's click here so you can see the value again in the formula here. So if we increase the release timer, so I increased it to a long value here, and you can see it here on the formula. You can see it decreasing, which means it's blending between the two formulas. So at 1 it's blended at formula B, so it's a full long release now, and you will blend to, yeah. And now the release is done. So let's finish up here by adding back in that second square wave at 1 octave lower again, and we have a nice fat sound here. And now let's finish up by saving it. You can simply save it by holding shift down and then clicking on one of these slots here. So if we click this one, you can see it was saved, but it's currently it's named as empty. So if you click here on user preset, save preset to disk, we click that, and we fill in a nice name. Just name it Pulse Wave Demo. We save it. You can see now the name has changed here to Pulse Wave Demo. We shift click here again, and now the name has also changed to Pulse Wave Demo. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned something from this, and see you the next time.